right away in general chat too, just around how to see screens. Jose is going to be sharing screen in just a minute, but you'll be able to click on the Flowverse voice chat again. Once you've clicked it, it'll show kind of tiles of everyone who's there, and when we share screen, that'll take that over. So feel free to do that. What's up? I'm Brian. I'm a product marketing lead over at Dapper Collectives. Newish to the team, been there about 2 months, and really excited to dive into Cast with you today. To start off with, I'm going to hand it over to our guy, Jose, to introduce himself. And then we're going to start with a walkthrough of the product. I want to show you kind of what it does. We're happy to answer questions about kind of how it does it too. And can then kind of tell you a little bit more about use cases and what we're thinking for the product as well as we go. But let's dive straight to product. Jose. Uh-oh, it looks like we lost Jose. Well,
is Jose?
Oh, there he is. Jose, you're back.
Can Jose talk okay? Yeah, easy. Hey, Jose.
Yeah, I just had to get the screen share settings updated on my end.
I love that for everyone. It's great. Let's jump. Jose, an intro and then a live screen. Look at this. Ugh.
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone wants to view this stream, you just click the watch stream button, by the way, at the top left on Jose's screen.
Looking good. Jose, we got you.
Cool, great. So Cast is the voting tool that, as Brian mentioned, we've been building over here at Dapper Collectives. Been working on it for, I'd say like 6 to 9 months, really. There was an alpha version that we released that actually ran a proposal for the Flow developer community. There was actually a vote on adjusting fee parameters and fee calculations for node operators that we were excited to really test out with the developer community. So there's this like really detailed proposal here essentially on how to implement these fee changes. And I think as folks who are into this side of the blockchain space know, these kinds of votes are really consequential, right? They're a first step towards really showing off the fact that you are building a sufficiently decentralized blockchain network. And so 71 people voted. If I remember correctly, it was something like, I think something to the tune of like $500 million worth of Flow tokens participated in voting. So really big node operators, people who are keeping the network up and running. So that was really cool. A lot of what our vision is, though, for Cast is that it's not just for these really weighty sort of like governance decisions. It's also for more creative style decision making and things that allow and empower small groups of friends and squads to work together using the Flow blockchain as their coordination layer. And so Cast is really designed to be as user-friendly as possible, and kind of tone down sometimes the jargon that can sometimes be a little bit difficult to parse. It's making things as accessible as possible for folks. So when you first land on the page, you've got this great big tagline with these stars that actually, I think I'll refresh and animate them in. But little nice touches like that, just really trying to focus on UI, UX. As you see here, Cast voting tool for token communities. We've got links here to our documentation where we've gone kind of in depth on how to set up a community, how to set up a vote. Our code is linked here for folks that want to get into the nitty gritty and audit how this thing is built. And then directions on how to let us know if you found a bug, which there are probably bugs for y'all to find. Let us know. We will be eternally grateful. Featured communities you would see when you are on the page and not authenticated in. And those are just communities that we're starting to add to the landing page as people create them. Our homies over at Emerald City DAO are here, and they're gearing up to put together their first vote on Cast. One exciting thing that they're working on that is going to be a precursor to them doing the vote is that they're writing a custom strategy. Strategies specifically are how your voting power is calculated on Cast. And what Emerald City DAO is doing as a strategy is a float specific strategy. So, they've got that awesome NFT project that allows people to claim floats for experiences that they've attended and things that they've participated in. They're building out a strategy that allows people to vote on floats from specific events. And so it really opens up the possibility for folks to create opportunities to vote on things based on the events you've participated in, the communities you belong to, and the way that you've contributed to that community. One thing I'll just go ahead and show off here too, that is another kind of pillar of what we're aiming for is, again, really fun and engaging community-based decision-making. And so as an example, we were playing around with this idea of like a Little Monsters Creative Inc. Little Monsters, if for folks who aren't aware, like the fan base of like Lady Gaga. So I'll just walk through really quickly creating a proposal on Cast so that folks have a look at that. And then I think we'll just open it up to Q&A, show off other things, and just like talk through how this all works. So when you first go to create a proposal, you're presented with this walkthrough style approach. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pop in a question here. Who should Lady Gaga take on tour this year? You have the ability to add all kinds of rich text and images inline in your proposal. But for now, to save some time, I'm just going to type some gibberish. Come down here, the next module is voting strategy. Like I said earlier, you select a strategy for how voting power is calculated. Community admins set those. So right now, the one that's set for this community is token weighted default. Come down here, choices. Something that we've done that other voting tools out there don't have is the ability to choose between both text-based and visual options. Again, trying to reinforce the fact that Cast is for slightly different style of decision-making that folks might be used to. So here, we're just gonna go ahead and drop in image of 100 gex. And we're gonna add in an image for, let's see, where is she at? Rina Sawayama. Gonna click next. Then you get a chance to set the start date and end date and time. So I'm gonna go ahead and just choose today, 7 p.m. Eastern. This is actually auto-detecting my time zone as well. So for folks who land on this, they'll always be aware of the specific time in their time zone that this proposal is taking place. Next, you get a chance to preview this, publish, sign the message with my Blocktail wallet, and then I'm taken to the proposal page where the proposal is shown with this pending tag. The duration of the proposal, it ends in 3 days once it starts. Information bar shows the strategy that's being used, wallet address of who published it. There's an IPFS link, which stores all of the data associated with the proposal for public auditing, start date, end date. Then also I, as the admin of this community, can cancel this proposal in case I made a mistake in the details, need to break it down, start over again. But in the spirit of auditability, that proposal will still be visible on the community page and allow people to see what exactly changed between the first version and the second version. Again, making sure that you can trust that people are using this tool in a way that is beneficial to the community, not trying to pull one over on folks. But that's basically it. Again, Cast is designed to be kind of as straightforward as possible and as easy to use as possible for anyone with a Flow wallet. Excited to get the chance to show it off to y'all and to answer any questions that folks might have.
Yeah, thanks for the walkthrough, Jose. I think, from our side, we're excited about the product being a little bit more flexible and playful than some of the other voting tools out there. We figure if we're going to build a voting tool for Flow, we want to make it kind of match the kinds of products that are being built on Flow. From our end, we see this as a tool for communities. Anyone can spin up a community here using any contract on Flow. So, anyone can kind of hop in and say, oh, I want to use this token as the thing that gates my votes or the thing that's the requirement. It's also, we've got really good documentation. There's a great Git book that kind of walks you through all this, as well as the public GitHub repos that you're able to look at and kind of see the code itself. The combination too of like the added image integration, the off-chain voting that we do, as well as then the forthcoming like leaderboard and some of the other stuff that's coming down the pipe, gives us really a tool that's super full-suited or super full of utility and with a lot of different features that we can tap into. And from our end, like ultimately the goal here is more than just like governance. Like governance is interesting, but it's not always like super fun. We see the opportunity for people to use this as a way to turn their audiences into communities. We can basically go from engagement, meaning like likes and shares, to meaning actual participation and decision making for communities. So really excited to see what people do with it. I mean, that's ultimately, we can build a public good like this, but how people put it to use is really what gets us excited. With that, like, glad to open it up to questions. Feel free to unmute and ask. And if you can't unmute or if you can't talk right now, you can drop them in general chat and we can answer.
Awesome. Yeah. Cheers for the presentation. It's looking very cool. I'm not sure if people have the capability to easily unmute, so definitely put questions you have in the general chat channel about the voting tool. A question on my end is, could you explain some of the different voting mechanics? Like I know when we did the setup of the proposal, there were different ways that people could vote.
Yeah, absolutely. So the two ways I'll tackle that question. First is the different voting sort of like structures. So one is text-based, and what that is just entering in text that represents the answer that people are choosing from. What we've done with there is made it sort of by default multiple choice, and so a minimum of two options, so a choice between A or B, but it's also ultimately scalable up to however many choices you want. So if you want to go crazy and maybe you're a musician and you want people to choose between like 30 different songs to put on an album, we're working towards allowing multiple choice, but you can allow people to choose from any number of options if there's a single choice to be made. The visual options are right now are binary, so A or B, and we're figuring out how we want it to work if we have people choosing from multiple image options. In the future, we're also working on testing out options that are multimedia but that aren't static images. So what it would look like if people are choosing between GIFs or videos. And then the other element here that's sort of modular and flexible is the voting strategies. And the voting strategies are, as I mentioned, how the voting power that each user has is calculated. And the different options that we currently rolled out with are essentially a token weighted, an NFT weighted, and then there's one that's kind of unique to the Flow community, the Flow developer community, which is staked Flow weighted. So the token weighted, as you can imagine, basically depending on the fungible token that governs your community or that you use for decision making, however much of that token people have in their wallet during the point at which the proposal is published is what their voting weight is. So if I have 500 Blockto tokens, 500 Flow tokens, whatever people choose, that voting weight will be what I vote with. So my vote will count for the score of 500 essentially. Same thing for NFT weighted. So if the Flunks community had theirs up and running, and they were running something with the NFT weighted strategy, if I had 5 Flunks, my voting weight would be 5. And so the goal with the strategies that's really cool is because Cast is open source, and because we want to build with the idea in mind that in the future, this is really a tool that's being driven by the community of builders out there. Strategies are actually something that folks can write themselves, submit to our GitHub repo, we'll review it, test it, and provided that it works, we will add it to the drop-down list for when you are setting up your community's choices of strategies. So that's why I mentioned, like, Jacob at Emerald City is currently working on a float-specific strategy. But in the future, people can write strategies that take into account all kinds of parameters that they might want. So maybe you want people to be able to use a combination of tokens. Maybe you want people to receive a very specific score based on the number of tokens that they have. Really leaving it open for all kinds of ways of allowing people to vote and calculating what their voting power should be.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's an awesome answer.
One tag on one add-on to that, there was a question in the chat, and it also hooks to what you're talking about, Jose, is the forthcoming float strategy too. We're working on float integration. Someone in the chat, Flowlifer, thanks for the question, had asked about using like a Rarible contract. Right now we point at kind of whole contracts or whole public lists in those contracts, which means that if you pointed at, say, that Rarible contract, it would let anyone with any of those Rarible NFTs participate in that vote. Two potential solutions. One is we're working on, at some point, adding NFT trade-based voting. No timeline on that, but one that we're running towards pretty quickly is getting float integration. The ability to spin up just like a super lightweight, low-lift float, distribute that to people who already hold an NFT, and use that as the voting mechanism. Or potentially, just for people who are like looking to use this in kind of a lightweight ad hoc way, you could really easily spin up a claimable float, drop that float to people, and let them use that as the path in to participate. I'm really excited about floats just because it will make it so much easier for people to like mint, get in, do the thing, and keep going.
Yeah, for sure. On that question as well, just to add a bit, Matrix Market, I believe, have enabled people to create custom contracts using their application. So maybe that's a route that you could take as opposed to Rarible if you wanted to spin up a community.
Yeah.
Just from the get-go. Float is an awesome tool though, and 100% can see how that would work really well with Cast.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Matrix Market. I'm super excited that they included a way to create your own collection that has a distinct contract, because again, that's what's going to enable the kind of interoperability that we need here in order to see the ecosystem continue to flourish.
Yeah, definitely. It does seem that a lot of third-party applications have the voting or login mechanism at the contract level. So yeah, I think it's very cool that they've enabled that feature. I guess on this then, for the Flowverse SOC community at the moment, we use the Rarible shared contract, but we are in the process currently of migrating to a custom contract. So I think we'll be able to start using the Cast voting tool once we're on the custom contract.
Awesome.
Yeah. Very cool.
Excited for that one. Another one that I wanted to flag too, you'd see when Jose hit that connect wallet button. Right now, Blockto is the only wallet available. We're working on Dapper wallet integration as well too. I know that unlocks a lot of doors for us in terms of like internal partners at Dapper who are interested in using the product. And the Dapper wallet like on and off ramps are just so good that we feel like for a lot of projects that's going to be just a huge plus.
Oh wow, yeah, I think that would be pretty exciting if you could log in with like for example like Nine Lives Lounge or something like that, being able to log in with your NFTs and vote whether they be like Top Shot moments or UFC strike moments or something like that. I think Dapper wallet would be awesome for this tool.
James,
Yeah.
It's like you're reading our notes. Like that's really,
Yeah.
I think what we're thinking about is like not just at the top level, right? Like it's one thing to say, oh, like, yeah, you can vote with the Top Shot. It's another thing to say that you can only vote if you hold 5 Milwaukee Bucks, or if you hold 3 or more super rare, or ultra rare of Top Shot, cards. So there's something really interesting about that kind of composability. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess one other thing that I was pretty keen to ask is like, what kind of thing do you think people will be voting on that's different to existing tools? So I know you have the voting. It's not specifically just for DAOs. It's also as a voting tool for communities. And you have the example with Lady Gaga where you could vote on the 2 different performers. I think what other kind of use cases are you thinking for it? Because I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, I think we've been talking to a lot of communities about this over the last couple of weeks, and like every one of them, you kind of say, hey, you can vote on anything, and people have their starting point of the kinds of decisions that they think that they need the most help making. But as you roll, then people kind of like their eyes kind of get bigger when they realize, oh, like we can actually divide this, we can make everything from like really lightweight fun decisions all the way to really big important decisions using the same tool. And so I think like I'd give a couple examples. So like one would be, let's say a bigger NFT project. Maybe they launch and have raised a significant amount of funds during the launch. They want to commit some of that funding back to start to start a DAO, to start kind of a community managed direction for that project. How do you make decisions around what that roadmap means? Well, you could say that only people who hold that token are able to help input into votes around what the future looks like. Very similar to kind of DAO governance generally, but I would say using it as a way to use that token as a shared access point to collective decision making. That's something that feels really powerful about that to me. Another piece too for those same kind of NFT communities would be the ability to reward participation in those votes. The ability to say to somebody, hey, thanks for voting in the last 5 votes. We're going to airdrop you something, or we're going to share something with you. We're also, the leaderboard is something that's coming really soon, where you'd be able to see who the most active participants are and kind of measure yourself up against others who are voting there too. So that's one. I would say another is then that kind of like maybe a little bit more kind of fun or like product direction-y, like the lightweight side of product direction. Thinking about a project like NBA Top Shot. Let's say you're the Milwaukee Bucks team. You've got 100 of like the most diehard Bucks fans in one room. You could decide what bar to meet at before a Bucks game. You could help provide input into product and say, hey, we want the backgrounds on this next series of cards to look like X, Y, and Z. You could vote on merch or like what you want the hat design to be. Is it A, B, or C on which of these hats we want to make as limited edition merch? Those are those kind of like light, kind of fun engagement pieces. And then I think where I get really excited is about fun that matters, like thinking about the ability to help shape narratives or choose directions for creators. Imagine an on-chain choose your own adventure story, which is a project that somebody could spin up with something like this. Is the ability to say, oh yeah, like we're gonna tell a story together, and build that in real time with the community who are invested in the product.
Yeah, wow. No, some really good examples there. Thanks for sharing those. The choose your own adventure story sounds super interesting. I'm pretty excited to see what people can come up with there using this tool. I think it's a great way to engage an NFT community with like a choose your own narrative around it. An application that I'm super excited for is like maybe with sports teams being able to decide on basic team kind of decisions, like I don't know, maybe what's an example of one just off the top of my head? It could be like what shirt design to go for before the start of a season or something like that later down the line. So I think that could be a really cool application of this.
Yeah, really cool. And I think like all of that to me points, James, to like the path of when we talk about DAO tools. I think so often people are thinking about like the biggest like existing DAOs are using DAO tools as like governance tools. They're using them to run their business. But there's a huge spectrum. Like decentralization isn't a binary, and neither is autonomy. Like I think that there's something about saying, look, we know that most decentralization happens progressively. I think the first step of that is getting people used to participating, getting them used to playing along at home and like being a part of something. That to me actually feels a lot more like organic and a lot more natural than saying, give us your money to be a part of a project. You can instead say, hey, come play with us, basically. Come help us make decisions because you care about this and we care about this. That feels like a really interesting kind of primitive to run at, is bring people in before we kind of try and get them to do anything other than just like be a part of something.
Yeah, absolutely. Just out of curiosity, the Little Monsters Creative Inc. Is this a bit of like sneaky alpha that's there with Gaga coming onto Flow, or is this a made up example?
I can neither confirm nor deny the kinds of conversations that were happening with people, but I think it's indicative of the kinds of people that we anticipate using the tool as we have the conversations that we're having. So while it might not be Gaga herself, I think the expectation that folks should have is that one of the things that we're trying to bring to the ecosystem and trying to bring to Cast is folks that might not necessarily be the first teams that you would expect to be using tools like this, because we think that the example that they can set is really, really powerful.
that's awesome to hear, and it's a great way of answering the question without giving too much away as well. Very cool. So I guess like, have you? Everyone listening in, please also ask questions. I might try and like adjust the audio settings in a second, just in case people are trying to talk but can't. If you want to ask a question, feel free to type it into the general chat, so that we can get so that I can then like say it aloud for everyone to hear. But basically, the next question I had was like, what's the reception been like amongst existing Flow communities at the moment? Are many going to start using this tool from the conversations you've had? I'm thinking like some of the OG Flow projects.
Yeah, so like so far, super strong reception. I think that Dapper wallet integration is going to be essential for some of those. Some of the conversations, that's been a little bit of a pause for us. The other ones, I think that teams are looking at this and now saying, okay, cool, like what's the first decision we need to make together? Which is great. It's a great place to be. I think the early convos with, especially the closer to a DAO organizations are, the more immediately they see the need for a voting tool. I would say that like bigger picture though, people are thinking about how to build this into their go-to-market and like customer engagement models. It becomes like a way of like saying, or community engagement models, like how do we work together with our community and how do we like bring them into the fold? So I think for some projects it requires a little bit of a mental shift from like we're using kind of Twitter, or we're using Discord as like our way of tracking sentiment or driving engagement. I think that those are probably like the first thing that most people go to, and I think it's the right move, is to say our first vote is going to be something that helps check sentiment of owners, or helps ask a question that people really want to answer. Making yourself heard feels really good if you're invested in a project. I saw a question from Soda just now. Do we have a Discord just for Cast? We don't have our own Discord, but in the Flow Discord, there's a Cast beta channel. I'll drop a link to it here. I would encourage anyone who has questions to pop in and say, hey. We're monitoring that and are taking care to answer questions as they come up.
Okay, everyone should now be able to unmute and talk. I also just saw Raven's message. I'm gonna make sure that notifications are disabled now too.
Love it.
Awesome. Yes, I'm not too sure if anyone else has questions. Oh, there's one coming in from Pearl now, who says, I know this project spawned out of a decentralized IP building limitations from Brad's experience with Lil Miquela. Is this still a focus? Any other thoughts around youth-driven DAOs?
Wow, someone has been doing their own research really intensely. That's awesome. So definitely still a focus. I think that for folks who are familiar with Lil Miquela and are paying attention, some really, really exciting things coming from that side soon. There is actually a Lil Miquela Discord that folks should go check out if they're curious to see how we're building towards what's happening there. But yeah, to answer kind of the broader question here about the idea of kind of like youth-driven DAOs, what I would say is that what that maps to is our vision of a world where, as Brian has put it really well, we're trying to spur participation and make it easier to participate and co-create and collaborate on the things that you love, the things that you consume, the things that entertain you, that move you, etc. And so for us, a lot of the product decisions that we're making about Cast are really about finding that balance for making sure this tool is flexible for all kinds of builders, but ultimately making sure that what it does is that it makes it super simple and straightforward for someone to come to a page, understand that they are ready to dive into this experience of decentralized decision making and make their voice heard. And so things like leaderboards, things like rich proposals with images and videos embedded, things like different kinds of voting styles that are a lot more fun and flexible. And even thinking into the future of like some really, really long term kind of vision that we have for ways of displaying how a community has voted on things over time. Sort of like idea that I'm obsessed with personally is this like timeline view that would show you, how a community got from point A to point Z, and aggregate together all the decisions that they've made over a period of time to really allow people to understand up front, cool, this is what I'm coming into. I don't have to feel lost. I don't have to like spend hours in a Discord getting familiar. I can come to its page on Cast and get a really simple understanding of what it is that I'm being asked to participate in. So yeah, for me, the vision here is one where the idea of participation is front-ended as something that everyone has a chance to do and be rewarded for and feel excited by.
Awesome. Thanks for the question and answer. Very good. I think someone else is typing now, so we might see another question come through in a sec. Love the answer from Pell. Awesome. Question from Sodder. Do you think this would be a good solution for big audiences to give honest reviews about something? Personally, I would love to integrate this with NFT tickets.
That's really interesting. I think, yeah, absolutely. One of the ways that I could think of doing that quite simply right now is that if there's an NFT ticket for a particular event or experience, whether it's IRL or URL, you could use the existing option of text-based answers and basically set it up on a scale of maybe 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, or maybe even specific phrases that capture people's reaction, like everything from wow, I loved it to needs improvement to I hated it, right? And just make that so that people can choose whichever of those options best reflects the experience that they had. And what you'll end up with is this aggregate of essentially a review or score for how that thing performed, how people felt about it. But yeah, that's a really novel use case that, to be honest, I hadn't thought of. And so I'd be super excited to see something like that happen. And yeah, let's talk about this more in DMs. I think those kinds of unexpected ways of taking the simple constructs here that have really specific use cases is what really excites us.
And that's really like, as we think about what the future of the product looks like, a lot of these kinds of like the features around what kinds of votes can happen or how things get voted on. We're going to look to the communities who are using this to help us really drive that. Like ultimately, we could build great voting strategies, but if they're not useful, then they're not great. Something that just made me think of is like, oh yeah, there may be a circumstance where we would want to say, be able to confirm that someone has voted, but not show in records what their vote actually was. I don't know if that's possible, but there's something about like, kind of like the ZK version of voting is like, oh yes, I did vote, but I'm not going to tell you whether. It's kind of like actually voting in elections in the U.S. is like, what if you vote? It's registered that you did vote, but it doesn't say who you voted for in the public record.
A feature that you mentioned a bit earlier that I'm very excited for is leaderboards. I think that there's a lot of gamification and that will be made possible by the leaderboard, and I think it's gonna engage the community a lot too. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Very excited for the leaderboard feature.
Yeah, one other thing about the leaderboard that we're super into is building a simple and lightweight API for that as well. And so people who are earning points from participating in a community on Cast, the ability for the people who run that community to actually query the API and match scores against wallet addresses and potentially reward people for that outside of the Cast experience.
Oh wow, yeah, I think that would be awesome, being able to match the wallet address to the person on the leaderboard, because it could be like you reward people with a special NFT, for example, if they're like the top voter over a period for their engagement. So I think, yeah, there's all kinds of cool reward mechanics. Even being able to just display the leaderboard on your own website could be cool too.
Yep.
Yeah, so like a list of most engaged people, most engaged people in your community. Outside of sharing, using it, and giving feedback, is there any other way we can help you evolve this platform? Partnerships, specific use cases to test, etc. From Pearl.
One for mine is, as you see projects that you think could be using this, would be great to have people in the community kind of letting the project leads know that they want to use it. Also remember it's permissionless, so if you're kind of active in a community that you think it'd be worth doing a poll on, you could, in the general chat of a community, say, hey, I'm spinning up something that points at this contract, and just want to kind of do a pulse check on community sentiment or something. You can do that. So I would say use it is really the big one. But then Jose, anything on your side from like what you're interested in seeing people do with the tool?
I think from my end, just try to kick the tires on it as much as possible. Use it in ways that feel interesting. I think for us, what's most exciting is just knowing that we have an amazing community of people out there who can start to create that sense of like emergent use cases. I mean, we discovered one right here thanks to Sada. And so the more that folks engage with it and communicate with us and let us know what they'd like to see or what didn't quite work well, and quite frankly, also what does work well so that we can double down on it, is super helpful to us.
Yeah, it's a good point about it's a permissionless tool, so you can spin up your own. You can spin up your own kind of vote if you're in another community without needing permission from the community's owner, because you can just plug the contract address into the tool and get people to vote. That's really cool. So yeah, definitely a good point. And I think that's like something great just about Web3, smart contracts in general, is anyone can build a community on top of it. Like people can build, like the NFT is almost a platform that anyone can build on, which is really cool. Pell says, dope work so far, excited to follow your story.
Thanks, Pearl. I love all the questions too, and to everyone here, feel free to add me if you want to talk more about anything specific here, or if you need support. Also, hop into the Flow Discord. We've got the Cast Beta channel over there, where we're glad to provide product support as well. And do follow us on social. I'll drop a link to the Dapper Collective social on Twitter. And yeah, it's great to meet all of you, and so grateful, James, for the time and attention from you and from the Flowverse community. This is really this is the dream, is having partners like y'all to help us launch something like this.
Nah, no problem at all. And hopefully we'll get a good video recording of this, so more people will be able to have a demo of the tool and understand exactly what's up. But yeah, Brian's just posted a link to Dapper Collectives on Twitter, so make sure to check that out if you haven't already. I think on Flowverse's end, we'll look to implement this tool kind of as soon as we can. I think there are some really good, I think there are a lot of use cases we can use it for in the Flowverse community, even things like deciding on what project to have on for an AMA, or what project to feature, for example, or what project to do a deep dive research report on, I think could be some of the kind of decisions, as well as like product features, for example, like if people want to see a specific metric displayed on the Flowverse website, maybe we can do a vote on that.
That sounds awesome.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, and if the community has any thoughts on kind of using this tool within the Flowverse community, definitely let us know as well, because we'd love to get your thoughts involved in this. And yeah, pressure us to hurry up and use Cast for socks. I think as soon as we can get a custom contract, we'll be using it for socks. Actually, question from me then, and it's more technical, is can you swap the contract that the community points to? midway through or not?
Yeah. So one of the decisions we made from a tech standpoint here and architecture standpoint is that while you select the strategies that you want your community to use at the community level, you then assign them at the proposal level. And so the reason that we did that for sort of thinking about future proofing is that you might have a situation where your contract evolves and you actually deploy something new. And so what you can do is go into the community settings, delete the existing strategy that you have, add it again using the updated contract information, and then use it for any proposals that are happening in the future, right? And so that way, all of the proposals that have already happened in the past using your pre-existing strategy and pre-existing contract are saved on IPFS, and those results don't go anywhere, but we're allowing communities to have the flexibility to evolve over time. And if their technical underpinnings change, they can continue to use CAST by following a few simple steps.
Yeah, awesome. That's really cool to know. Because maybe there's a way that we could, I don't know what your timeline is on getting the float integration, but we could use Flowverse XP or something like that to do the votes initially, which is a float that we gave out to SOC holders, and then potentially pivot to having the custom contract. But I mean, the custom contract should hopefully, touch wood, be ready pretty soon anyway.
Nice. I think we'll probably have the float strategy tested and ready by a couple of weeks from now. So we'll just reach back out once that's ready. And if it makes sense, this might be a great way to get the Flowverse fam in here sooner.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty much it from me. I mean, if anyone else has any final questions, or if you, Brian, or Jose want to add anything, like any final thoughts?
Yeah, just again to just repeat the gratitude, James. Super grateful for the support and for the time from the crew, and don't hesitate to reach out and say hey to me. Jose, any parting thoughts?
No, just super grateful for everyone here. Really always love coming in here and chatting with folks. I've done one of these before with Matt Moyes, our director of technology. I'm looking forward to continuing to build alongside the Flowverse community.
Yeah, thanks for the kind thoughts. It's super appreciated and actually very exciting to be able to break the news about some of these next level tools to the Flowverse community. So also very appreciated on our end. Final question is, Pearl, I missed the beginning. What does CAST stand for? I always thought it was just like cast your vote, but yeah, does it stand for something?
No, there isn't an acronym, although now I kind of want to come up with a ton of them just to confuse people. But yeah, CAST really came from thinking about the idea of casting your vote, but also on the other side of that, like casting a net, right? And sort of capturing sentiment, capturing how people are feeling. And so there's plenty of puns and jokes and acronyms that we can come up with, but we just liked CAST because it very specifically refers to the actions that are being taken on the app, but it's also like kind of like broad enough that it comes with all these different like metaphors that make sense.
It looks like we're gonna have to open up a naming contest here to pick the best acronym for what CAST stands for. So we'll look forward to your submission, Pearl, and if anyone else has any, drop them here.
And do a naming contest using the tool.
Oh yeah, that's great.
No.
All right, cool.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks a lot for your time, everyone, for listening in today. I hope you got a lot of value from this. I definitely did. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Jose. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. We're doing a AMA with Nifted, who are doing physical displays for NFTs on Flow. So yeah, it should be a very interesting conversation with them. But easy. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
High five.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks again.
Bye.